And welcome everybody to Bangers and Classics podcast. We're still going strong with me, James Ruppert, and him, David Malloy. And where's David been?
Oh, not very far. Being confined to, not to the house, but just have been doing a lot of things around about the house, so I haven't really been anywhere at all. Got some bad news about the EV, I'm afraid.
Oh, no.
That, they won't be active this year. Just run out of time. I have been let down quite badly by somebody who was going to do some work to it. The upshot of which is I'm going to have to take it about 50 miles away now to get the work done. And I've lost a couple of weeks, and well, that's the end of that for this year. So, but it'll all see itself out in the wash.
Good.
Anyway, another news, very, very topical news as of today's date. I'm going to refer to you as the Preacher Man. I think that's quite a good name for you.
Well, you may think so, David, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh.
Or doesn't.
Oh, I know. I think it will. I think you are the Preacher Man. You are here to put the world to rights, Mr. Ruffett. Let's be honest.
Okay.
I'm just here to sort of carry your bags, basically.
Well.
Right. So not too much in the way of personal news. I did see an interesting classic yesterday.
Yeah.
Not a flashy car, but a Peugeot 309. Now, it wasn't the red one I usually see. This was a grey one. I couldn't tell if it was a GTI. It was behind me. It didn't look like a GTI, but it could have been. It had 4 people up. It looked to be in absolutely excellent condition, and it was going along the road, keeping up pretty well with traffic at even with 4 up for a non-GTI. That was pretty impressive. As I say, unfortunately, I couldn't. I tried to memorize the number plate by reading it backwards, but I think I transposed one of the letters. I can't figure out what it was now to see if it was a GTI. Never mind. So that's it. It's the only car spot this week. Have you seen any interesting cars this week?
I have actually, David, and it's always one which I always think of you. You see, I'm always thinking of you, David. It's getting rather a worry. But what was hurtling towards me, and it really was on the limit, was a Lotus Elan. It was a Mark 1. It wasn't the ones that you've had, but it was the...
No. So it wasn't the good one then?
Well, it looked pretty good from where I was, and it was bright yellow, and he was going for it. And the thing about it is, we always come across with older cars is they're absolutely tiny, and it was the smallest thing. I was actually in my lorry Land Rover, and it felt huge. Whereas he was coming towards me, it was a dot in the distance, but it wasn't. It was a dot, about a few yards ahead of me. They're tiny things. But that brightened my day. It's lovely. I think people think, if you live in Norfolk, that's all you see is Lotuses, but actually you don't. It's quite a rare spot.
Yeah.
But that was quite an entertaining thing to see.
It would be, yeah. I mean, was it yellow, did you say?
It was bright yellow. Bright yellow.
Oh, hang on. It wasn't left-hand drive, was it?
No, it wasn't actually.
Because there is a yellow left-hand drive one that's now owned by a motorsport journalist who I won't name. Originally belonged to Jim Clark.
Oh, right.
And just before Jim Clark went to Hockenheim in that fatal weekend in 1968, he actually gave the car to a guy called Jabby Krombach. Now, that was his flatmate in France, who was another motorsport journalist, again of some repute. And Clark said, I'm not going to need this anymore. Tax exile year's almost up, Jabby. You have the car, and gave him the keys. And off Clark went to Hockenheim and tragically never returned. Yeah. The car is still owned by a motoring journalist or a motorsport journalist. Yeah, I have seen it. I've even photographed it at one point. It's quite a remarkable little bit of machinery. But again, because of its size, it's no blooming use for me. So I've got to a really bolshy point in my life where if a car is too small for me, I'll just say, rubbish, not interested, and move on from it. Not a good attitude, but I do believe that manufacturers should make cars for people of normal size. We're not all 5'7" or 5'8". And
right. Well, some of the best people are, David, but there you go. And but I did see some vehicles that you could fit in, and it's odd that I've seen several pickup trucks, American pickup trucks. I have no idea exactly what they are. They're usually Chevrolets, but I've seen a few of them recently. And I think the idea is to actually import them as they come, so you don't mess about with the patina. But what you must do is slam them, which is very strange. So if you put a bag of sand in the back, I don't think it'd be terribly useful. You probably wouldn't be able to move. But
No.
I've seen a couple of those, and yeah, it was left-hand drive, and I'm sure there'd be plenty of room for you to spread out in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a big fan of pickup trucks. The only kind I like, if you know the John Carpenter film The Fog, there's a pickup truck, a really old beat-up truck in it, which gets its windows blown out early in the film. That's the kind of pickup truck I like. That's got character.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of soul to it. But more modern ones, nah, not for me. I'm just not my thing at all, I'm afraid. The modern ones, especially with the extended cabs, just do not like them. There's a lot of them around here, and they're usually pretty badly driven, to be honest.
All right.
I have found. That's just my opinion anyway. But what else have you seen? You've seen a Lotus and various American pickups. What else you got?
Well, I'm keeping the banger flag flying. I saw a Toyota Tercel. I can't remember the last time I saw a Toyota Tercel. But it was in pretty decent nick. So, and it seems to be like used every day.
I think we're going to have to call that a classic, James.
It's a banger, David. It's a banger.
No, there's none of them left.
Well, I saw one. So they do exist.
Maybe you were hallucinating. You were dreaming at the time. I don't know.
No. It was a real one. So don't worry about that.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I cannot remember the last time I saw one of those.
No.
I mean, it's so long ago.
No,
I think it's a Flying Dutchman, James. You have seen the motoring equivalent of the Flying Dutchman. Yep, that's it. Which apparently was seen by the future King George V. He's on record as he's on record as having spotted the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah,
that is apparently a true story. So I think this Toyota Tercel is the Norfolk Roads equivalent of Flying Dutchman, and you spotted it, sir.
Oh, I spotted it, yeah, and it was quite nice to see those flat panels, those right angles that make up a Tercel.
Indeed, well, why not? I mean, how long ago were those made? I'm trying to remember now.
They're 70s, 80s, aren't they? 80s.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I thought.
70s.
Round about that. Yeah, I mean, they're very old. They're not quite as old as us, but still getting on for it. So there we go. Anyway, so I think we should take a quick breather there. If you're looking for advice about baking cakes, tarts, souffles, meringues, vol au vents, you've come to the wrong place. This is Bangers and Classics. So we're back after that break, and James has had a quick quart of Duckham's. He's now ready to go again. And, well, we're going to do a banger of classic next. And it's a car that, well, if you heard it up close, it would sound like the annual French knitting convention. It really would. But, of course, it's a Simca 1100. And, well, without further ado, let's get James's view on it.
You used to see a lot of them around, and you don't anymore, is the most perceptive thing that I can say. I think you all have chapter and verse on it, David. But it was a very, very, very early hatchback, and as you also know, a very, very, very early hot hatch. There were also some exciting commercial versions that I quite like the look of, and there was a pickup, I think, version of it as well.
There was.
There was something for everybody. But it was extremely popular in France. I mean, they sold absolutely boatloads of the things, didn't they, over there? And you used to see that in the UK, and you used to be able to buy them for a couple of £100, because I know a few people who did, and that was late 70s, early 80s, and then suddenly you turned around and they'd all gone. But I think they're great. I mean, again, it's one of those, if you want a typical French car, that's, to me, a typical French car. It's it's practical, it's useful, it's largely reliable, and has real character. But I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, James. I mean, it was a very early hatchback. It was probably, in my mind anyway, was the first of the medium-sized hatchbacks. Obviously, you had the Renault 16, which was 1965. You had the Renault 3.4 before that, which I'm going to ignore because I think they're more like an estate than a hatchback. Then you had the 1100 67, which wasn't just a hatchback; it also had a transverse engine, all-round independent suspension. It had a really good specification for its time. And they sold loads of them. And later on, they brought out the 1100 Ti, which was probably the world's first hot hatchback. It wasn't hot at all by modern standards, but I think it's something like 84 horsepower. If you look at the detailing on it, little red accents everywhere, alloy wheels, that kind of thing, air dams. It's got all the ingredients of what would come later. Basically, it was the first of that. As you say, they had loads of pickups. It was burdened with a series of engines, however, called the Poissy engine. They were designed by a guy called Georges Martin. And he made a good job. The engine was pretty reliable, but unfortunately, they rattled like crazy. And the fix was quite easy, but they never were fixed. Georges Martin then moved to Matcha and designed the Matcha V12 racing engine. By way of complete contrast, it sounded terrific. It reminds me of the sort of Trumpets of Jericho being played through Nigel Tufnell's amplifier. It's quite an incredible sound. If you ever get the chance to hear one live, then grab it with both hands. Georges Martin did come up with some interesting ideas and evolutions of the Poissy engine while he was at Matra. Unfortunately, nothing seems to have come of them for budgetary reasons. But there we go. So you had the hot hatchback, you had a very early front-wheel drive hatchback, obviously, with a transverse engine. But as you say, you had pickups and you had various other versions. And of course, it gave rise to one of our favourite cars, and the favourite car of many people who've never actually owned one had to endure it, the Matra Rancho, which was, of course, based on the 1100. And it also gave rise to a car that's often confused with the Rancho, which was a Talbot Wind, which was produced by a company called Heulier, who were coach builders. They only made one. The prototype still existed and sold for absolute peanuts at sort of a fire sale of Heulier prototypes a few years ago. It looks a little bit like a Rancho. It is a pickup, a sort of striking sort of white colour scheme with white wheels. Very attractive vehicle for what it is, but there's only one of them exists. But it's not a Matra. That is genuinely a Heulier based on a Simca. Nothing to do with Matra, that one. But I digress, as I usually do in these matters. The 1100 went on probably a little bit too long without getting any sort of major upgrades. And I think that was largely to do with Chrysler's financial situation at the time, because Chrysler had obviously bought out Simca. And it was sort of replaced to a degree by the 1307, 1308, and eventually by the Horizon. But the Horizon was really just a Simca 1100 in a party frock, you might say, and didn't really take the game any further forward. With sympathetic upgrades and updating, it could have went on and continued to be a very high-selling car. But obviously, as time passed, it became less competitive, and the competition caught up to it and, in many cases, bypassed it. But the question, of course, is, do we think it's a classic or a banger? I'm going to go classic, because it's nearly...
It's very, very difficult to disagree at all. I think it is a classic, and it's not just because you don't see them. It really was a forward-thinking car, and it could do a job today, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week and deleted the section about what we'd have done when we were in charge of Chrysler, but it was an example of what Chrysler Europe should have been doing.
Yeah.
Is moving forward, rather than continuing to produce somewhat staid, outdated cars, the 1100 pointed the way forward, and they were too slow to adopt that. But there we go. But yes, it's a classic, so we're agreed on that one, and we can move on to the next subject, which is, I want to quote a song here, Up on the Roof, and we're not talking about Lee Marvin. We are talking about, do you prefer hard, soft, or Targa? So what's your preference, Mr. Ruppert, when it comes to vehicle roofs?
I suppose, actually, the majority of cars that I own, and I have owned some convertibles briefly, I rather like a hard top over my head. I like the reassurance of a proper roof. But the glamour of a leaky Targa is very, very difficult to object to, really. I've been through all the electric sunroofs. I've seen some very dodgy moon roofs, as people will remember them in the old days, which always leaked without any exception whatsoever. I'm a hard top man, really. I've got places to go, people to see. But if you are going to own a convertible, you've got to drive convertible all the time. A friend of mine who always specified his company cars when he was selling them as convertibles if he could get them, but he drove winter, summer, and as people know, in the summer actually it's quite a good idea to have the roof up, because otherwise you won't have the top of your head. But really, you can have such good fun in a convertible. You can smell the countryside. You can get the abuse of passers-by, and you can hear that very clearly. But that's not for me. I like the safety, security of a hard top above my head.
Right.
And what about you, David?
I'm probably going to go with Targa. I've never actually owned a Targa. I have owned several convertibles. I've owned quite a bundle of hardtops. I've owned cars with glass roofs. Owned an Aventime, which is a very large opening glass sunroof. And I love the freedom you get from a soft top.
Yeah.
But because of my height, I either usually have to get rollover hoops put in or hunker way down in the car, which isn't really good for you because basically my head can protrude over the windscreen. There's an infamous picture taken with one of my Land M100s. And I didn't realise just how much my head actually protruded over the top of the windscreen. And if you flip one of those things, the windscreen will not give you much protection anyway. So, I mean, I wasn't banned from owning them. When my wife says, yeah, you can have one if you want one. It's up to you. But just please, get rollover hoops fitted to it. And she has a point. It's my big bonds is the problem.
Yeah.
Living near airports, etc., liking to pull over sometimes to look at the stars. I do find the hard tops quite a nuisance when it comes to that. One of the cars I've got in the driveway, which unfortunately is going to go the way of all things soon, has got a glass roof, which is really nice. You get a little bit of the best of both worlds with it. You can pull the shutter back and look out. You can see the stars. You can see, a jumbo jet roaring over at 50 feet above you. So I live near an airport, and we do get that occasionally, and that's pretty good. But obviously, the Targa roof, well, you've got sort of roll hoops built in, haven't you? Effectively, and they can look pretty good. I mean, some of the nicest cars I can think of, the Fiat X19 was a Targa. Lancia Monte Carlo Spider was a Targa. We're not going to mention the Porsche 911 because I just don't want to.
I think they do own the rights to Targa, though, don't they? I think that is actually a copyright Porsche.
Yeah, maybe true, James, but Porsche took it from the Targa Florio motor race in Sicily. So whenever I think of Targa, I always think of that motor race. I do not think of Porsche. Anyway, it's a useful term for describing a roof. You had some TVRs, you had three-piece roofs, if you remember, James.
Yes, they did, yeah.
The early TVR wedges, they were very clever. I also have driven a few times a car with a folding metal roof, but I don't see the point.
No.
If you're going to have a folding roof, make it a soft top. It's better from point of view of weight. And if you're in a crash with the roof down, well, your metal roof's in the boot. It's not going to do you much good there. So yeah, I'm going to go Targa. That would be my favourite.
Yeah.
I think after that probably would be a convertible, and after that would be a hardtop with a glass roof in it. A conventional hardtop would be my least favourite.
Of course, one could always go Speedster, where you actually wouldn't have a windscreen at all, would you? Just have like a bubble behind your head.
That might be a Porsche trademark, actually.
Yeah, I think that might be.
I think that actually probably is.
Yeah.
Because you had the 550. Did you not have a 356 as well, Speedster? I think you might have. I also know they brought out the 911 Speedster, I think, at the end of the 80s, if memory serves me right. Yeah. Now, I actually saw one of those recently. I can't remember where it was, but I saw one. And again, they're very thin in the ground. Didn't really do it for me, I'm afraid. If I was going to go for a soft top Porsche or whatever, it would be a 944 if I could fit in the blooming thing, which, of course, as we now know, I can't. So there we go. So I'm going to go for Targa, and you're going to go for...
Well, I do like the Targa. I have a very soft spot for the Targa, but I'll just go hard top just to be obtuse and be the opposite of you, David. That's all.
Just as usual, yeah.
Yeah.
That's most people do, yeah. Whatever he says, I'll go the other way. Yeah, call me Mr. 180 degrees, that's it. And on that note, we will take another break. You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the analog podcast for a digital world. So we've covered a couple of things there. Let's move back to the 1980s, because I think we'd probably rather be there, James, wouldn't we?
I think so. I think they were simpler times.
Let's look at things. From a car perspective, what 1980s style car accessory would you miss the most? I don't necessarily mean like a furry dice or rubbish like that, but something that was an optional extra in a lot of cars. What would you have missed if it hadn't existed?
Well, if only you'd have said that when you sent the email to me, David, because
I didn't I? That'd be too easy, mate.
I always come out of these things rather poorly, and to me,
No, you did.
I really miss seeing the bolt of lightning earth strap trailing along the ground.
Oh, God, I carry one of those.
Yeah, there you go. And I think maybe the fact we don't have those anymore is why everybody's mad these days. I think they probably grounded people and made them better human beings and better drivers.
Maybe so.
Whereas now, we just leave everything to I don't know to science. But those things look great, and you used to see them all the time. And it was very odd in that you thought, yeah, they're touching the ground. Why don't they wear out? And they don't. They don't seem to. They must have been made of some very, very special pre-Kevlar sort of rubber.
Exotic material recovered from Roswell, James.
Exactly. That I think that's probably the case. And I hope we're going to revive these in the Bangers and Classics accessory shop, which is coming soon.
They may revive themselves anyway, because you might remember around about the same time you had strips, which effectively were sequential indicators.
Yeah.
I was a friend of mine called them Bajungi lights. Of course, I get that wrong, called them Bajungi lights for a couple of years. And if they've come back, I see some sort of posh German cars have effectively Bajungi lights, except they're hardwired now, built in.
Yes.
And they look ludicrous.
They do.
For goodness sake, people, wake up. I don't know what's going on with it. But yeah, I suppose in one sense, the old style ones put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, the more ludicrous it was, perhaps the better.
Yes.
I think, anything that makes you smile is a good thing, really. As long as it's not somebody else's misfortune. I think
no,
have
that's
to be,
right.
Get it out there.
I've supplied the stupid suggestion. Can you give me the sensible one then, David?
No, I think yours is very sensible.
Really?
I think mine's stupid now. Yeah, I was just going to say alloy wheels. Because I don't know how many toothbrushes I went through in the 80s cleaning alloy wheels. That was it. I probably kept Oral-B or Colgate or someone like that in business.
Yeah.
Cleaning the blooming things. Not so much perhaps now. Well, maybe it's still the case. But in the old days, alloys used to feature all sorts of nooks and crannies that were impossible to clean with a jet wash or with anything other than a toothbrush. You really had to spend hours cleaning these things. The Matcha Murena had effectively turbine alloys, I called them, and the standard wheels. And yeah, they look great. They don't have to take a long time to clean, let me tell you. And they do consume a few toothbrushes along the way. But I mean, other things you could have said, James, of course, were we could have had the Wayne and Waynetta Sunstrip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which, again was ludicrous, but they were quite common.
Yeah, they're extremely common. Yeah.
Especially down Dagenham for some reason.
That's right. Yeah. They were common in more ways than one.
Well, you furry dice, of course. I mean, everybody seemed to have furry dice at one point. I didn't.
No, of course not.
But they were I couldn't afford them probably. But yeah, you had lots of absolute junk like that. I mean, Sunstrips again we've done. What else did we have, James? There was quite a lot of things that have just disappeared. They were funny.
Yeah. Well, because it was fun to. I think what we've lost is making your car your own in some respect, and it could be done on the cheap rather than thinking I'll pay a lot of money for a specific paint job or something. I think we were more make, do, and mend in the 80s, and as you say, people had a bit more fun, and in some ways, it was meant to make other people maybe point and laugh a tiny bit. I think people did understand the humour. Because that was in a way the point of having your name and your current girlfriend's name on the old Sun strip. But
that's it. I mean, if you remember, Zender used to do a whole load of car accessories.
They had. I did have those catalogues, and it was absolutely incredible, really, about how much they think. There was a few other companies as well, wasn't there? Who was the one who was associated with Vauxhall?
Ermshire.
Yeah, that's it. Ermshire. They had a ton of stuff, and these catalogues were absolutely huge.
Yeah, Demon Tweaks. Remember them?
Demon Tweaks, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Zender is, I mean, they did one thing that was great. Obviously, apart from all the nice things they'd produced, there was a great version of the Renault 11 Turbo, which you could only get in the continent. It never came here. Called the Renault 11 Turbo Zender. So if somebody wants to go and find me one of those and buy it as a early Christmas present, I'll be very grateful. I won't hold my breath for that happening. But yeah, that's wonderful. Also, as a member of Jim Innerkai, I think he was a bass guitarist called Stuart Zender, and for the longest time I thought he'd taken his name after accessory company. Turns out he didn't. Yeah, one of my mad theories, because obviously, JK is really into cars. So maybe the whole band's car nuts.
Yeah.
And he's changed his name to Zender because of that, but apparently not. Though, just per curiam, Simon Le Bon, whose name I thought was a made-up name, his real name is in fact Simon Le Bon. So there you go. You can have hours of fun with that. And of course, last week we talked about the wonderfully named Filmer Paradise.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have called last week's episode really Paradise, but Filmer Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Yeah.
To quote the old Meatloaf song.
Exactly.
But I didn't think of that, and too late now, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll move on from that. We did have a challenge this week. In theory, we're going to do the same one. In theory.
Right.
Which means it will probably go completely awry as usual. And that challenge was to find a large French motor with an MOT gov for less than 2 bags of sand.
Oh, right.
And you got a bonus point if your find had a petrol V6.
Right.
Now, I had a good look and I came up with something that's really good, but it was too expensive. There's a 5-cylinder Renault Safran with, I think, about 42,000 miles for sale on eBay, but it's too expensive. But do check it out. It's £2,500, 42,000 miles. Looks like a good buy. That is what I would have went for, but it was too expensive. So looking for other stuff, you're going to like this, James.
Yeah.
I went completely off at a tangent as usual. I spotted an advert on Facebook from a guy who owns not one, but 2 Renault 15 TSs.
Goodness me.
Yeah. Now, they are pretty shonky looking in the photographs, if I'm honest. Yeah. There's an orange one and a yellow one. One has good wings, but no engine and gearbox. The other is not so good, but has a private plate, which, well, if you can't restore the car, it's not much cop. But it does have an engine, presumably a gearbox as well. You could perhaps make a good car out of the pair of them, and I would hope they would find a good home. It's on Facebook Marketplace. If you search Renault 15, you will find that he's asking for $1,500 for the pair. Hopefully somebody out there will take them. But yeah, I mean, if the challenge had been to find obscure cars from the 70s or now obscure cars from the 70s, the restoration, that was a winner. So in the end, I had to go a little bit more conventional, and I found a Citroen Xm from 1995 with an MOT to next August for $1,500. It's a turbo diesel, 5-speed manual. It's in white. It's had a lot of work done to it. It needs cosmetic and some other work done to it, I think it's probably fair to say. Given its age and given the price point, I think you'd expect that. But that would be a good car to have. And it's got a tow bar.
Goodness me.
So yeah, I think that's quite good. Again, it's a Facebook Marketplace. It has got, as I say, a valid MOT well into next summer. So for $1,500, interesting car, and all the better if somebody buys it who's going to store it back to its former glory. That would be lovely. Probably won't happen, but you can always wish, can't you?
Well, absolutely, of course you can.
So what did you get? I mean,
well, what you do, David, and I want people to understand this, is that you do send me, several pages of terms and conditions. I have to print them off and read through them. When I was reading through, I didn't see anything about staying in the UK. David, am I allowed to hop on the ferry?
Of course, yeah. You can go to the Isle of Wight anytime, mate.
I can go to the Isle of Wight. Well, that's good. Well,
yeah.
actually,
or you can go to one of the Scottish islands.
Could I? Right, because I stayed on. We went past the Isle of Wight and the Isle of Scilly.
Did I ever tell you about my mate that rode to America from Scotland?
Oh, did he? No.
Yeah, he was going to go to a party in Cape Wrath and missed. Ended up rowing across the Atlantic.
Oh, right.
Not true, of course.
Easily done, though, isn't it? Really?
Oh, well, very easily done, yeah. I mean, all he had to sustain him was the sort of standard gear for a party in Cape Wrath, a couple of bottles of whiskey and a tube of midge repellent.
Right. That'd do.
Yeah, well, I got him there, so it's all good and well in the end.
Well, David, I thought, well, what I'll do. I forgot about the 2,000 limit, I think, but it doesn't really matter. But I really love the look, and I know that you do, of the Peugeot 605, which is a sort of a grown up 405, really, isn't it?
Mm.
It's a bigger one, and I found one in Belgium, and it had 165,000 miles on it. It was V6, so it's petrol. It does have the advantage of having an LPG conversion, so
Oh, very sensible.
absolutely. So yeah, you won't spend as much as you think on
Better for the environment too. But let's just get that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that was the way forward, and yeah, I do have a book about how to convert a car to LPG, and it was printed in about 1978. So that's how far LPG goes back. But
Right,
there you go. But it's a manual as well, so which I think is quite unusual. It's in black, and the price is £1,287. Being a foreign ad, it doesn't seem to have a great deal of detail, so I don't quite know what I can trust. And there's only a side profile picture, but I thought that was pretty good going. Whether it's got an MOT or not, or the equivalent of a Belgian MOT, I really can't tell. But it's meant to be roadworthy and can be used. And if I hopped across the border to France, there was one which went over the budget by 146 quid, and that would be an automatic one. And it's there was they're called collections ones, which obviously had loads of extras thrown at them, and that had less miles, actually 93,000. Yeah, so for just over 2,000, that didn't seem too bad. But okay, yeah, and it's left-hand drive, but we've discussed left-hand drive before. It's no problem at all. You adjust that extremely quickly. Yeah, those are mine. I haven't got anything as exciting as your, barely mobile things on Facebook Marketplace, but I quite like I like the look of a 605, and maybe it's something I can drive up to you and leave with you.
No, I think you've got the winner, James.
Really?
So? I do. Yeah, well, you've got a V6, haven't you? So V6 always wins, really.
Yeah. But I thought that was in the terms and conditions. That's why I obsessed about V6. I thought it said V6.
No, I said you got a bonus point for it.
Did I? Oh, right.
Yeah, we've got to read the small print. It's upside down and printed in visible ink, but it's there. Along with you, she'll send me a bag of boiled sweets every week or something like that.
Right.
You've got to read that one as well. Which you've still not read, obviously.
No,
but we'll let you off. The 605. Yeah, quite a nice car.
It is, yeah.
Did the one in France have a CT control technique?
I have no idea. I'll tell you, these adverts have virtually no details on them at all. It's like, here's a car, here's the price. But it really is. It's as basic as that. There's virtually no pictures. And whereas over here, you seem to have like a million pictures, and people go to town on description. But no. But there's some quite expensive ones over here. I've seen ones about 6, 7, 8,000, and you think, wow, someone would be prepared to pay that for a 605. Maybe they would.
Well, the thing about it is, of course, very few right-hand drive ones, and that's it. So if you want a right-hand drive one, because there's so few left, you're going to pay a premium.
Yeah.
There'll be more left-hand drive ones because, simply a lot more were made.
Yeah.
And so the survival rates will be higher. So the number of survivors will be higher, I should say. But the left-hand drive's not a problem at all.
No, it isn't.
And I mean, when you come to the ads in the continent, I imagine it was a French part of Belgium, sort of boof, look, he's a car. You want it, you buy it.
That's right.
Otherwise, go away, you silly person.
Exactly.
Unclogged man knows it, you. Yeah. to misquote Monty Python, but we're not going to go there either. So one more thing we're going to do. We're going to try something different again. We've covered sort of roofs. Let's go down and do shoes now, shall we? What kind of shoes do you prefer to drive in? Dare I ask? That's the question.
It's quite a bizarre question, isn't it, really? I mean,
I'm quite a bizarre person, though.
Well, I've noticed that, David, but actually, you could probably clear up a legal point here, David. Is it actually illegal to drive without shoes? I understood that it was, but I've never had that proved in court or anything, but...
I consulted my vast legal knowledge. Basically asked a dog that's lying beside me. She's a sensible one here. And apparently, you can drive without shoes. You can drive barefoot legally in the UK. You probably shouldn't. It's probably not very sensible to do that for all sorts of reasons that we won't go into. I wouldn't drive in flip. In fact, I wouldn't wear flip flops either. There's another question. Let's just get that one out there. Don't wear flip flops. You look like fools. There you are.
Well, that's right. And are we going off topic when we come to string back driving gloves? Because I don't know whether those are a requirement, legal requirement.
String back driving gloves, God. I've ridden about those several times. Usually not with favour. I usually associate them with a certain type of person.
Yeah.
So I won't go there. I'll be gentle today. I'll be gentler than I have been, and say no comment on that one. Yeah, string back driving gloves. No, not for me, Gov. Not for me. Obviously, being 6'3", I've got quite big feet, and they can be quite wide as well. Which is why, although I'm a size 11, I have to wear a size 12. And I find a lot of cars pedals are too close together. In Scotland, we call plimsolls gutties, probably from gutta percha. The golf balls are made from, because we've made it pretty much the same stuff as the soles were, and known as gutties. So if I had my choice of footwear to drive, I don't do it because I look like a complete idiot wearing them these days because I'm an old geezer. I'd be wearing a pair of gutties because they're very small, and for pedals that are closely bunched together, they're perfect. Normally I just drive with Chelsea boots on. I would never drive with flip-flops, slippers, barefoot, or wellies. Simply because, for various reasons, but in the case of wellies and the likes of Caterpillar boots, my feet are just too big and I'm in danger of hitting the wrong pedal. So what about you, Mr. Wupper? What do you wear?
Well, I suppose the best thing would be to do what did I wear this morning when I went out in the Mini Cooper? Went to do some errands.
Was that with your gabardine suit on, was it?
I didn't know.
Crushed velvet, no?
No. I mean, I am a fan of the Chelsea boot. I have a lot of time for the Chelsea boot because it saves you time, which saves you those precious seconds of doing up a shoelace. But I actually do wear sort of steel cap builder's boots quite genuinely, and I'm quite comfortable in those, and actually they will fit all my cars. But no, David, I do have, I suppose in the old days they would have been called hobnail boots, but there's no hob and no nail in them these days, but they are still toe capped, so that if I drop anything in the garage on my toes will be fine. And I find that, in the Land Rover, in the Minis, in the BMW, actually, that's what I wear most of the time. So
you're a more classically proportioned male, I think, aren't you?
Well, I don't know. They are size 10s actually.
Really? Right.
Yeah. They, so it's a decent boot, but I just like to think that I'm prepared, David. Just in case I have to kickstart anything, or I don't know if I'm called upon to rescue a damsel in distress, I've got the correct footwear.
That's very important. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely to do things,
especially for an international man of mystery like yourself.
Something like that.
Yeah, international man of mystery in tackety boots.
Exactly. Yeah, I wear clodhoppers. I think that's pretty much.
Oh God, do you remember the cartoon?
No.
Clodhopper was the guy with his shoes the size of canal boats.
Was he?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God. This is going completely off tangent again this week. Yeah. There you go. Clodhopper, in case you're wondering, was a character in a kids' cartoon series in a comic many years ago. Don't ask me which comic or whatever, because I can't remember. But it was funny back in the day when I was a kid, and I might even still laugh at it. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I think it is important. I mean, if any of the Bangers and Classics listeners have any fashion tips, or culture tips, please pass them on. We're always interested to hear them.
Absolutely, yes, that's it. I mean, obviously, you usually got with your crushed velvet suit on, etc. And the velvet gloves, James. You just to complete. You don't wear them; you just carry them with you.
Absolutely, but they do come in handy
to strike scurrilous people in the face with.
Well, that's right. If ever you want to challenge someone to a duel, I do find they come in handy.
You demand satisfaction.
I certainly do.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, you really are with Neil, aren't you? You're the with Neil of the motoring industry, motoring journalism industry.
I'm rather more Peter Wingard, I think, really. But there you go.
Oh, Joe, yes. Yes, Jason King, Department S.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh, God, yeah. I think we should call it a day. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you tune in next time, and take care.
Yeah, thanks very much. We're all suited and booted and off for a night out.